Hello, dear friends, I'm with you. The mod which I will tell you about in today's video was asked to review by many of you. I must say right away that the mod is not new, but it is periodically updated and has managed to fall in love with a huge number of players. We are talking about the fashion of vampirism. However, if you are too lazy to watch this video, then just install an additional mod called Guide and PyAI. I will leave a link to it in the description, along with a link to the mod I am reviewing. With the help of Gate and PyAI, you will get a book with instructions in it, and by the way, it is available in Russian. The translation, however, is very clumsy at the moment, so it's better to read the manual in English right away. But before I start my story, I want to thank Drakianos for helping me experiment with the mod. Now, let's go. The mod exists for a number of versions, starting with 1.7.10 and ending with 1.12.2. I will look at the example of version 1.12 to the latest available version of the mod to date. For those who do not know what this mod is, I will briefly tell you. If you like vampire themes, then the Vampirism mod is definitely created for you. And it doesn't matter what exactly you like, to be a bloodthirsty immortal vampire, or a brave hero, a hunter of evil spirits. You can choose any role for yourself, and besides, you cannot choose any of the sides, but remain an ordinary person. It's just that in the world in which you live, various interesting mobs will be added. In addition, the mod adds us a new biome, some new plants, and all sorts of other gadgets, about which a little later. I'll start playing, perhaps, for the vampires. To become a vampire, you need to get sick with a vampire infection, which is called Sanguinara vampiris, which apparently can be translated as vampire blood. There are several ways to catch the infection. The first one is to go for a walk at night and let a vampire bite you. True, the method is not the most reliable, because it may not work out from one time. The second and much more reliable way is to get a vampire's fang and prick yourself on it. This is done with the right mouse button, holding the fang in your hand. By the way, the fangs can either be knocked out of the vampire mob, or pulled out of the frame on the vampire hunter's house, or found somewhere in the treasure. The third way is if you are playing on a server. You may well ask one of the vampire players to bite you, of course, provided that the server settings allow you to infect players. The infection effect will be noticeable by the purple particles around you and the icon in the upper right corner. We have a game day to heal. To do this, you just need to drink a bucket of milk, which will remove the effect from the vampirus webinars. If this is not done, then at the end of the term, we will turn into vampire, still very weak of the first level. The level can be determined by the purple number between the hunger scale, which now looks not like bones, but like drops of blood, and the health scale. Our vampire essence becomes visible in the eyes, but there is such a small detail here that I must warn you right away. Everyone has different skins, so there is a chance that vampire eyes will not go well with your skin. That's how I am now, but do not be alarmed. The developer has provided for this, and we have the opportunity to choose the right eyes for ourselves. To do this, we write vampirism in the command line, press the space bar and tabs, find the AI command, then press the space bar, and enter a number from 0 to 13. So, you will pick up your eyes. I think these ones, number 10, will suit me. Does my skin look even uglier? It's from the mouth. It doesn't fit my skin at all. It doesn't matter. It's fixable. We enter the vampirism command again, and this time we are looking for funk, after which we enter a value from 0 to 5. That's something like that. And now your Nyasha is a real princess of the night. Turning into vampires, you can get some abilities. To select them, open the skill grid. By default, it is the English letter Pi, Russian Z. Well, or click on these fangs. At the first level, you only have the opportunity to drink blood. As you level up your character, you will be able to discover new skills for yourself. Having turned into vampire, it's like you've become a little faster, stronger, and gained more health units. Well, so far it doesn't feel much. But now you're not breathing anymore, so you can't drown underwater. However, in water, you get the effect of weakness and become very slow. If you are going to swim a lot, you should seriously think about how to fix this state of affairs. At the first level, the sun does not damage you, but you will not feel very well. This manifests itself in reduced visibility in a yellow frame like this. The book says that at the first level, vampire hunters who spawn everywhere on the map do not react to the vampiries of the first level. Lies and provocation still react. So if you want to save your immortality, run away from them or kill them. Vampires perceive as their own already at the first level, but monsters such as, for example, zombies, spiders, and so on, will still attack. Now that you're a vampire, human food is no longer good for you. To get enough, you have to drink blood. In principle, if you are a fan of the Twilight movie and want to look like the Callan family, then you don't have to drink human blood at all. Animal blood is also suitable. And by the way, I'm already hungry. I'm going hunting. So, first you need to decide who you can bite and who you shouldn't. First of all, you can bite all vanilla animals: cows, pigs, horses, ocelots, domestic cats, wolves and dogs too, llamas, sheep, rabbits and bears, chickens, parrots, bats, octopuses, scales, spiders, slugs, shockers and endermites are not suitable for food. From people, you can bite residents and other players on the server. Vampire hunters, vampires themselves, creepers, zombies, piggies, witches, zymogers, skeletons and endermen are not good for you to eat. And there is such a small flaw so far that you can drink blood from zombie horses and skeleton horses. If it could be good for you to eat, then when you hover over it with the cursor, these red fangs appear. And in general, remember that red for a vampire means edible. To drink blood by default, press and hold the English letter V or the Russian M dot. At this moment, the camera is approaching. It's as if you are sucking on the mob and release it. Only then will you stop holding the bite key. When bitten, the fangs gradually change color, which means that there is already less blood in the mob. If you drink too much, you can kill him. With one bite, you won't drink all the blood from the mob, but his blood will decrease, and these gray particles will go around him. The bitten mobs will restore their health after some time, and you will be able to milk the blood from them again. The fact that they can be bitten again is clear from the pieces. If they are gone, the blood has recovered. Even if the fangs show that the mob is badly bitten, do not pay attention. It's such a simple flaw. As soon as you bite the exfoliated mob, the blood level on the fangs will be updated, and you will see reliable indicators again. There is also a chance to infect them with your vampire infection. An infected mob will have red eyes, and it will start drinking blood from other live mobs. In particular, infected residents can kill or infect other residents, livestock, and wild animals. If you have become a vampire and hope to give immortality to your pets as well, then for now, break off. Having become vampires, pets cease to obey you. When I was writing the script for this video, I thought it would be spectacular to appear riding a vampire horse, accompanied by a vampire pack of dogs. It turned out that there was no way to get on a vampire horse, which personally upset me a lot. Then, I wrote my thoughts on this to the developer. I didn't get an answer, but I think he listened to my request after all, because after the last update, we had the opportunity to ride vampire horses and ride them. So, I think there is every chance that sooner or later, vampire dogs and cats will also appear in fashion. If a mob is not good for you to eat, you can still bite it by pressing the same bite key, and thereby cause damage to it, and much more severe than if you just hit it with your hand. But there is a danger of getting poisoned. So, for example, biting a zombie or a spider, you risk poisoning, but you can chew through the shockers, even through a closed shell, and this is already on the first level. But to do this, you do not need to hold the bite key, but on the contrary, you need to have time to press as many times as possible. By the way, in some cases, when you hover the cursor over the villagers, the fangs will not be red, But green, do not bite such residents. It is not in your interests. But I will tell you more about this in a little while. If you play on builds where there are mobs from other mods, then you shouldn't have any special problems. Vampirism itself calculates according to some of its formulas how much blood should be in which creatures. If you don't like automatic counting, then you can go into the configuration, disable this function, and enter all the values manually. Blood can be stored for the future. To do this, you need empty bottles. You don't have to hold them in your hands, but they should be on the toolbar. If your scale is full, then all the excess blood will be collected in them. Bottles of blood do not stack. The most nutritious are, of course, people. Residents can collect almost 2 bottles of blood. To store blood, you can craft and install a blood container in your home. The recipe for creating is like this. 14 bottles fit into one container. Liquid containers from other mods are also suitable as storage. There are a couple of devices in fashion that are worth talking about to get blood. The first of them is a grinder or a meat grinder. To create it, you will need 1 diamond, as well as an iron ingot, a funnel, and boards. The second one is a blood filter. It needs a block of quartz, 3 ingots of iron, a vanilla cauldron, and again boards. In order for this whole thing to work, it is necessary to assemble it into a single system. And to do this, we will also need the same blood container that I have already mentioned. So, we put the container at the very bottom, install a filter on it, and, well, at the very top, the grinder. Of all these devices, only the grinder has an interface. We go into it and put raw meat there. Beef, pork, or lamb will suit us. Well, if you are too lazy to stand and throw up different kinds of meat, then you can safely supply this case with a funnel and a chest, and thus automate the process somewhat. So, my vampire friends, you won't die of hunger now. Since you've become vampires, being a healer doesn't suit you. Of course, you will want to become the strongest and most powerful of your immortal race. In order to raise your level, you will have to perform various rituals. And for these rituals, you need to craft altars. The first altar you create will be the altar of inspiration. To create it, you need iron, glass, and a bottle. You will need this altar to climb to the 2nd level, and you will be able to use it up to the 4th. The book says that all rituals should be performed at night. That's not true. Rituals on the altar of inspiration can be performed at any time of the day. To rise to the next level, you will have to fill the altar with blood. The higher level you want to climb, the more blood you will need. To get to the 2nd level, you need something a little more than 10 bottles of blood. When you fill the altar, right-click on it with an empty hand. Red particles will break out of the altar and enter you. Lightning will strike the altar, and the regeneration effect will be superimposed on you for a few seconds, and you will become stronger. And in skills you will be able to open night vision. The sun still won't hurt you, but with each new level you will feel worse, being in the open during the day. You will also have an increased life scale, and you will be able to drink more blood. And so it will happen with each level increase. Starting from the 4th level, you can no longer walk harmlessly under the sun, and now there is every reason to skip the day. But it can't be done on the bed. Since you are a vampire, you can now sleep in a coffin. Crafting is like this. You need wool and boards. By the way, the animation in the coffin is also pretty cool. And yes, if you are some kind of strange vampire, and you want to sleep not in a coffin, but on a bed, then no one forbids. You can also use the bed, just the night will slip as usual, not the day. And you will wake up with the first rays of the sun, which has such a bad effect on your beautiful pale skin. The 4th level is the maximum that you can achieve on the altar of inspiration. To climb to the 5th level, you will have to make an infusion altar, which is a multi-block structure. The altar itself is crafted as follows. You will need 2 bars of gold and 4 blocks of obsidian. Next, we will need the columns of the altar and the ends for these very columns. Crafting columns like this 5 stone bricks. And it's better to do it right away with a margin, because the higher you need to pump your level, the more you will need these very columns, and the end you can do like this. We put the altar in the center, and the columns are arranged as follows. From the altar in each direction, you need to count 4 blocks, that is, we have an area of 9 by 9. It is desirable that there are no extraneous blocks between the altar and the columns, such as grass blocks. We have columns in any sequence in the area defined by us. The height of the columns is maximum 3 blocks. The materials from which they are made also matter. What I called columns is really just a frame for a column. To create a column, fill the frame with the right mouse button with any of the appropriate materials: stone brick, bone block, iron block, or gold block. All blocks of the same column must be made of the same material. At the top of each column, you need to place an end. In order to find out how many and which columns we need, the mod developers suggest using the formula of structural points. As scary as it sounds, it's actually quite simple. The fact is that each material has its own cost. So the cost of 1 block of stone brick is equal to 1, a bone block and a half, a block of iron 2, and a block of gold 3. For the rituals, you need something else. You won't get off with ordinary blood this time. Altars will demand from you pure blood, human hearts, and vampire books, which are some ancient writings. Where can I get them, you ask? So, human hearts are falling out of vampire hunters, pure blood of the vampire barons, and, by the way, it happens to be of different levels. The altar, the manual book, or the wiki will tell you exactly what level of blood is needed for the next ritual. Only 1 vampire book is needed for each ritual. You can find such books in treasuries. They come across in chests in villages, for example, in the house of a vampire hunter, and also sometimes fall out as loot from advanced vampires and hunters. All these special items, vampire books, pure blood, human hearts, as well as something else, are items of trade for special residents. But about these residents a little later. And now here's a visual guide to performing rituals on the infusion altar. If the time of rituals did not matter, up to and including the 4th level, then now you will conduct them exclusively at night. So, the altar seems to be ready, the night has come, and we can perform the ritual. We go to the altar and right-click on it with an empty hand. If a message appears in the chat that the structure is assembled incorrectly, then try adding columns, or filling them with more valuable materials. But everything is fine with me, because I have assembled an altar so that rituals can be performed on it up to the highest level without changing its structure. But he begins to suggest what items are needed to level up. So if you suddenly forget how many things you need at what level, the altar will remind you to enter the altar interface. You need to right-click on it while holding an object in your hand. Let's put pure blood in the first slot, hearts in the second, and a vampire book in the third. Now we go out and click on the altar with the empty hand of the right mouse button. Blood particles fly out of the altar and they connect with the columns. By the way, if you have more columns than you need, then they will not contact everyone, but only the necessary number, as well as a thick red beam with you. Then a red light covers everything. You hear the roar of an explosion, and for a few seconds, you have the effects of regeneration, saturation, and strength of the third level. By the way, at the moment when you start the ritual, a resistance effect is imposed on you, which passes a couple of seconds after the end of the ritual. Here is my character who has reached the maximum level of a vampire and has received an achievement, as bloodthirsty as possible, or as bloody as possible. Somehow, this is how you can translate this point. With each new level, we were given 1 skill point. In total, when we reach the maximum, we get 13 such points. And now we're going to look at what kind of skills a vampire can have in general. As I mentioned, the skill grid is assigned by default to the pi key. It is also the Russian Z, or you can click on the fangs in the inventory. The skills themselves are divided into those that are added to us by default. That is, nothing needs to be pressed to use them, and those that need to be specially applied by pressing certain keys. To open the skill panel, by default, hold Latin P, Russian K, and then select with the mouse. So, up to the 4th level. We didn't have much choice in skills. They opened one by one. So we got night vision, regeneration, and the ability to turn into a bat. The mode of view, by the way, is changed by a separate button. By default it is N or Russian T, and now we will look at each skill separately. Regeneration gives us the effect of recovery, but increases thirst. That is, vampires recover quickly due to blood consumption, from which they starve very much. Turning into a bat gives us, oddly enough, the opportunity to turn into a bat, but only at night, or in a territory controlled by vampires, such as the same vampire forest, or in caves. In short, where there is no direct sunlight. Being a mouse, you can fly, and for quite a long time. In addition to the fact that you look like a bat, you will also have the same amount of health, 2 hearts. So keep in mind, you are quite vulnerable in this form. By the way, the vampire's health in bat mode can be changed in configurations. If 2 hearts are not enough for you, then you can fix this thing, turning from a bat back into a humanoid vampire. Do not forget to descend to the ground, otherwise you risk getting hurt, or even hurt yourself. If during the flight, you plop into the water, then immediately turn back and turn into a bat in the water, you will not succeed. Starting from the 5th level, that is, just when we began to conduct rituals at night, 3 skill lines become available to us. The first of them is interesting to vampire adventurers. In it we see such opportunities as protection from the sun. This skill gives us temporary protection from direct sunlight, and it has a relatively long rollback. That is, you will not be able to use it again immediately. After sun protection in this line, we can choose one thing, either speed or jumping ability. I know the choice is difficult, because we all want to run fast and jump high, but we have to choose. I choose jumping. Jumping and running are just those abilities that are added by default. That is, you do not need to press anything separately. You will run fast or jump high anyway. You will have a jump height of 2 blocks, so you will almost step over fences. The next ability in the line of adventurers is blood vision. With it, you will see edible creatures through the walls and thus be able to discover your prey. Blood vision turns on your vision mode button, and you have to wait a couple of seconds for your eyes to adapt. Everything around will darken, and nutritious mobs will be highlighted with a red line along the contour. However, at the same time, you will almost not be able to distinguish everything else. But when you already know where your prey is, just switch the vision mode again, wait a couple of seconds, until your eyes get used to it, and go hunting. And then we have an opportunity that many have been dreaming about, perhaps since the creation of Minecraft, namely, to be shunned by creepers. Personally, I screamed with delight when I discovered that the creepers were fleeing from me, as if I was not a Mirunyashka, but an ocelot. However, keep in mind that if you attack them, they will not continue to flash their heels, but turn around. And there's nothing to do. We'll have to finish them off in a hurry. Otherwise, there will be explosions. After the creepers, an ability called perspective opens up to us. It is written about her that she increases the distance and the appearance of fog in the vampire forest. This can be understood in different ways, so I'll say it easier. If you have this skill open, then the border of the fog in the vampire forest seems to move away from you, so that you are able to see further than other players, which is actually logical. Vampires in the vampire biome should feel at home, and accordingly, better navigate. Garlic blood vision allows you to see through walls, not only potential victims, but also creatures with poisonous blood. These creatures are highlighted with a blue outline, but again, you will not see all the creatures, but only those who are good for you to eat, plus hunters and residents who are under the influence of hunters. All sorts of zombies, spiders and skeletons of hedgehogs with them are still not visible. Well, the last ability in this branch is teleportation. After we have unlocked it, we will be able to call it from the socket of skills, and the logo has the face of an Enderman. This ability has a rollback, so you can't jump several times in a row. But the rollback is not very long, so it doesn't matter. Let's now consider the second line, or if you prefer, a branch. This branch, it seems to me, is most suitable for vampires who want to coexist peacefully with humans as much as possible. The first opportunity in this branch is the summoning of bats. This skill gives us the opportunity to mislead our pursuers. To summon mice, we need to first turn them into mouse ourselves. Finding exactly the right one in a flock of bats is not an easy task, so such a cunning maneuver is very likely to help you save your immortal skin, especially if you do not want victims from the pursuers. By the way, the bats you have summoned will not fly indefinitely. After a while, they all squeak at once and disappear. You can call them again after the rollback. Then, after summoning mice in the humanist vampire branch, we are given the opportunity to choose whether to receive less damage from the sun or get rid of the negative buff in the water. Personally, I prefer the second option, because no matter how tempting it sounds, to be able to walk under the sun. In fact, the damage from it still remains quite significant, but getting rid of the weakness of the fourth level in the water is a very serious bonus. Moreover, it comes with the ability to see very well underwater, so it's a peaceful and very useful skill. Next comes the Thrifty Vampire skill. It reduces your bloodlust. As I understand it, your hunger scale will be spent much more slowly, which is also important if you promote the ideas of humanity. If you don't want to be recognized as a vampire, then you will need the following skill in the humane branch: disguise. By using it, you will be able to hide your red eyes for a while. True, this time is not very long, and the ability also has a rollback. As long as you are disguised, hunters will not react to you. The next ability is Damage Limiter. This ability blocks high damage values, but consumes blood, i.e. hunger. The last ability in this branch is Invisibility. It works for a fairly short time, so if you need to slip somewhere unnoticed, then you need to act very quickly. And you should not be wearing anything, and nothing should be in your hands, otherwise you will be seen. Let's now consider the last branch of vampire abilities. This line is for real blood lords who do not suffer from any pangs of conscience, and all sorts of useless ideas about humanity. The first ability in this branch is called Vampire Rage, and it gives us speed and strength to our attacks. It works for a fairly short time, and for this time, we have a red frame around the screen. After that, there is a rollback. The next possibility could be called the Bite Master. It allows you to suck blood more efficiently from victims, increase bite damage, and it also makes it easier for you to stop at the right moment. I didn't really understand what the lightness is, but the bites are really getting stronger. The next ability of the Bloodthirsty Vampire branch is a Finisher or a Finisher. With this ability, you will instantly kill any non-vampire who has less than 25% of life left using a vampire's sword. The next skill is the Dark Blood Throw. If for some reason you are left without throwing weapons, such as a bow, and you do not want to approach the enemy, then you have a good solution. To use your vampire abilities, your dark blood will rush towards the enemy and cause damage to him. Not very strong, but it rolls back from the ability pretty quickly, and you can use it again almost immediately. Bloody Recharge. The ability to recharge your blood-absorbing devices, such as vampire swords, right in the campaign. However, they will consume your blood, emptying the hunger scale. But in conditions when there is no way to run home to recharge a weapon, it can be very useful. In order to use this ability, sit down, holding a charging device in your hand, and right-click. The last ability of the Bloodthirsty branch is Freezing. It stops everyone in a certain, very decent, by the way, radius of mobs. They are not covered with ice, but these green bubbles come from them, and they can't move for a few seconds. This ability has a rollback, so you won't be able to use this opportunity again quickly. Note that you have a few more vampire skill points than you need in order to fully open one of the branches, so you cannot open them at all until the end, but use points for some lower order skills from other branches that seem more useful to you. Of course, if you need some skill from the end of the list, you will have to open all the previous ones, even if you don't need them, so be careful spending your vampire experience points. As for the skills, I should mention that you have the ability to link to skills to separate keys. This is very useful because it is not always convenient to choose a skill from an outlet. This is how it is done. First, determine which keys you will use for skills. By default, these are Alt 1 and Alt 2. Then drive Vampirism into the command line, put a space and press Tab until you see the Bidextion command. After that, space again, select the key 1, space again, and Tab again. This is where you need to know a little English or translate with a dictionary, because you will have to choose the right skill, and they are listed here for both vampires and hunters. I choose to turn into a bat because I find this vampire ability very convenient. I'm sure I'll use it often. Well, on the second key I'll put Summon Bats. This way I can quickly turn into a mouse and confuse my pursuers. If you are tired of your immortality and you no longer want to drink blood from living beings, then not everything is lost for you. There is no need to start the game again, but it's worth running around the villages and finding a church there with a cleansing altar. By right-clicking on the altar, you can give up your vampire essence, die, and then be reborn as a mere mortal. But keep in mind that you will immediately lose all your vampire levels. If you play in hardcore mode, you won't die after using the altar, so you won't have to start the game again. If you are too lazy to look for this altar, then you can craft it. However, for this you will need the same book of vampires. Craft is like this: 4 blocks of boards and a book on top. All this is arranged in a cross in the workbench. Now let's talk about some things that are available exclusively to vampires. First of all, vampires are able to craft vampire weapons, such as the Swords of the Seeker of Hearts and the Impaler of Hearts. Swords are special and are crafted from special iron soaked in blood. Pure blood is needed to obtain such iron. If we use blood from the 1st to the 4th level in crafting, we will get 3 ingots of blood iron as a result. If the blood is of the 5th level, then the iron will come out of even better quality enhanced blood iron. The Seeker of Hearts is crafted like an ordinary vanilla sword, only made of bloody iron. If it is made of reinforced blood iron, then the sword will turn out with improved characteristics. There is exactly twice as much material going to the Heart Piercer, and it does more damage. Vampire swords require recharging with blood. To do this, you need to craft a bloody pedestal. It is crafted from an ordinary bottle with ordinary blood, not vampire, 2 bars of gold, 3 boards, and 3 blocks of obsidian. This pedestal should be installed on a container with blood, after which you can load your weapon. Just take your blade in your hand and right-click it on the pedestal. You will see this animation. Your sword is spinning, and blood particles are drawn to it. As soon as the particles stop, it means that your sword is either drunk or the blood has run out. However, it is not difficult to check. Right-click to pick up your blade and hover the cursor over it in the inventory. In the third line from the top, you will see the level of its charge. A charged blade will emit blood particles just by being in your hand. Vampire swords have a special feature. As with any weapon, you have to get used to them more precisely. These swords should get used to you. Therefore, you will not immediately deal the maximum possible damage with them. The more you use the blade, the more the percentage of its fitness will be pumped. Therefore, it makes sense to repair such blades and not craft new ones. They are repaired, by the way, on an ordinary anvil with other similar blades. In addition to the usual and improved seekers and heart piercers, there are also special ones. You can find such blades in vampire dungeons. These dungeons come across underground, and it's a matter of chance to find them. They are not tied to the biome in any way, so it is not necessary for diggers to search the dungeon in the vampire forest. Vampires are passionate lovers of beautiful clothes. They are real fashionistas and have a special weakness for spectacular-looking raincoats. Being a vampire, you can craft yourself such a cloak. At the moment, raincoats are available in 5 colors. I don't know about you, but I think we need to add even more. Here, I would like to have purple or lime. In such a cloak, one could safely go to a vampire party. By the way, in addition to the fact that they are beautiful, raincoats also add a touch of protection, but given the vampire survivability, it's not so important. Vampires can also craft special vampire castle blocks. Here's what the manual book says about this. Lock blocks. These are decorative blocks that prevent spawn of all non-vampire mobs. The dark version of this block prevents any entities from spawning at all. The crafting of these blocks is like this. The blocks, by the way, are quite interesting. Besides, there are steps and semi-blocks for them. It would be nice if the developer added fences as well. By the way, there are also themed bloody castle blocks. They are not currently being crafted, but they can be found in vampire dungeons. Now let's talk about the vampire biome. The Vampirism mod adds us a new biome called the Vampire Forest. There is a rather gloomy atmosphere in this forest, and even during the day, the rays of the sun do not penetrate here. The whole forest is shrouded in a continuous veil of fog, and even the water here is not like water. It looks more like bloody puddles. There is dark grass, dark foliage on the trees, and dark earth on which they grow. The land is special and is called the Cursed Land. On this most cursed land, very beautiful flowers grow, which are called the vampire orchid. This orchid is used in various crafts, but personally I will plant it somewhere in my yard just for beauty. Of course, all the inhabitants of the vampire forest, evil spirits and mostly vampires, skeletons, creepers and zombies will not spawn in the vampire forest, but there are ghosts there. Vampires themselves are very different. They differ not only in appearance, but also in level and skills. The simplest ones. These are ordinary vampires. They attack neutral players, and also drink blood from neutral mobs and attack hunters. Ordinary vampires are quite capable of infecting vampirous sanguinaries. After death, they drop teeth, and if they are killed with a stake, then vampire blood. The health of these vampires can be very different. I've seen it with 15 units and more than 40. Vampires are able to summon a flock of bats, and in the conflicts, I saw that they have the ability to turn into a mouse themselves. Advanced vampires, these have more health than ordinary ones. Everyone I met had 60 and 100 units, and they have names that are visible above their heads. If ordinary vampires find themselves next to advanced ones, they begin to follow them wherever they go. After death, advanced vampires drop bottles of blood, so if you are a vampire, you will find food for yourself. Well, if you kill them with a stake, you will get vampire blood, which hunters need. With a very small chance, you can knock out a vampire book from them. Vampire barons come in different levels, respectively, very different in strength and health. They are able to summon minions, little vampires like that. If all the other vampires get along well with each other, then the two barons will not be able to get along side by side, but they will immediately arrange a showdown, which may be very beneficial to you. Vampire barons drop pure blood after death. And blood, it happens, as I said, of different purity. And there are also ghosts. Ghosts don't drop anything but experience, and they don't have as much health as vampires, but they disappear as soon as you attack them. And start domots hit you out of nowhere. They appear again after a few seconds, so chasing them is not so easy. The Vampirism mod adds a number of enhancements to us. Some of them are common to everyone. Some are only for hunters, and some are exclusively for vampires. So, for example, there are points for killing a vampire baron, for discovering the first vampire book, and for the first visit to the vampire forest. As a vampire, you will get an achievement for the first bite of a moth, for creating a container for blood, for performing a ritual on the altar of infusion, for turning into a bat, as well as some others. Well, now let's talk about how the Vampirism mod affects the life of Minecraft villages. One of the first things that catches your eye is the Vampire Hunter Trainer's house. Vampire players are interested in it solely in the sense that the treasured book of vampires can lie in the chest. Well, maybe something else useful. But a vampire needs to be extremely careful when looting this chest, because the inhabitant of the house immediately turns on you, and he is quite strong. Then many villages will be generated with a totem. This totem emits a ray into the sky, and by the color of the ray, you can determine what is happening to the village. If the beam is white, then the village is neutral. The beam is blue, so the village is under the control of vampire hunters. For us vampires, this means that biting the inhabitants, we will be poisoned. The fact that the inhabitants are poisonous to us becomes immediately apparent from the green fangs. But the totem does not apply to animals, so eat boxes, pigs, and others for your health. If the beam is lilac, then the village belongs to vampires, which is very bonus for us, if only because we do not have to hide in the shade or run into a coffin with the first rays of the sun. A light fog envelops the vampire village, which protects us from ultraviolet radiation, and we can safely walk around the village without fear of being incinerated by merciless sunlight. In a village captured by vampires, blocks of land will gradually change to a block of cursed land, similar to those in the vampire biome. By the way, if there is no totem, but you need it, then you can easily craft it. To do this, you will need to make the base and the upper part. The crafting of the base is here, and the top is done like this. After that, install the totem, right-click on it, and you will be happy. There are new residents in the villages. They are so white in lilac aprons. If you look closely at them, you will see that some of them have red eyes, while others have ordinary ones. Residents with red eyes are called vampires and experts, and with ordinary hunters and experts. And here it is possible to buy the ingredients we need for rituals from them, or to get rid of unnecessary fangs, or whatever else. Moreover, if you are a vampire, then you will be primarily interested in vampire experts. And if you are a hunter, then, of course, hunters. If you liked the village, but it was under the control of these vile people who dared to attempt your immortal race, do not worry. Just go to the totem and right-click on it. It doesn't matter if your hand is empty or not. Now go scour the village. Hunters will come to protect the village, as well as some of the villagers. Don't think that a hillbilly with a pitchfork is a light snack. In fact, if you are a weak little vampire, they can really seriously pile on you. So before you make such a raid, make sure that you are able to carry it out. In general, you need to kill all the defenders of the village, and then the settlement will be under your vampire control. By the way, when you capture a village, other vampires will most likely come to your aid, but I strongly recommend getting rid of them as soon as the village is yours. You don't need food competitors. And yes, make sure that infected residents do not infect others. Otherwise, you will be left without food. This concludes my review of the vampire part of the mod, Vampirism. I hope my story helped you in some way, or at least was interesting. Put likes, my immortal brothers, as well as those who hunt us, because in the next part of the review, we will talk about you, fighters against evil spirits, vampire hunters, if you suddenly haven't subscribed yet, and click on the bell so as not to miss the video from Mirunyashka. See you soon, dear friends. Bye-bye.